Hey there, I'm Nick with Acres Equipment, and I'm standing in front of a W235R windrower with an R500 head on the front. And I just wanted to really quick go through some tips, tricks, and best practices as you're getting set up to go to the field to maximize your performance out of these machines. So first things first, I'm down here at the cutter bar where we need to make sure we're cutting that crop cleanly, but also efficiently for the machine. So we'll start with our cutter bar angle and our skid shoes. We need to make sure that cut height is exactly where we want it. I always try to run this cutter bar as flat as possible to start, set my skid shoes where I want them, and then only make adjustments to the tilt as necessary. So I'll take you back to the skid shoes and show you what I'm looking at. So I'm back here at the skid shoe. Remember, with a flat cutter bar angle, what we want to do here is set these either as tight as we can, the very first hole closest to the cutter bar, or just one hole down. Usually in our conditions in Nebraska, I'll start in that very first hole, but we want to keep this pretty tight up to the bottom of the cutter bar so we can run that cutter bar nice and flat. Now, after we've set those skid shoes where we want them, either that zero hole or that very first hole, next we can come in and make adjustments to the cutter bar angle. The more aggressive we get, the more knife wear we're going to experience, but we can get that cut height a little bit closer to the ground if that's what we're after. Try to start flat because it'll also help improve the life out of your knives if you can run that as flat as possible, but tilt as the conditions call for it. Next, I want to talk about the actual speed of our cutter bar. Now, some guys just want to run this wide open, but what you can actually do is increase your efficiency of your machine, better fuel economy, and just better performance overall by slowing this cutter bar down. We want to go just slow enough that we're still cutting the crop cleanly, but as long as we're doing that and we're staying on the slow side, we can be more efficient with our fuel on the machine, as well as increase the knife life. So just behind the cutter bar, we've got our converging auger. Now, this does a great job at distributing that crop across our conditioner rolls to get good conditioner performance. It is important though, as you're checking through this machine, make sure your strippers are set nice and tight to that converging auger to allow that crop to cleanly escape from the converging auger and get into the conditioner cleanly and efficiently. Now, if we're talking about our conditioners themselves, this is our V10 roll. We've got several different options, but in Alfalfa, I like to run these nice and tight, just looking for that high conditioning performance. But do remember, if you've got a new windrower or mower, when these are fresh out of the factory, we still have some sharp edges that need to be broke in a little bit. So sometimes if you're pinching or almost cutting that crop with the conditioner rolls, it's because they're too new and too tight. So at least in that break-in period, open those up just a little bit. You'll still get good conditioning performance. And as they wear, that's when you can squeeze them back down really tight where we want them. Also remember, we've got our presets, so our 1, 2, and 3 here on the joystick. And you can set each of these for different settings depending on the field conditions. So if I've got some spots where maybe I want a little bit more roll gap, or I want to change my forming shields, lighter spots in the field, I can set a preset on 3 with different windrow formation and cutter bar speed than number 2. 2 for the average of the field or the heavier spots, and 3 for the light spots. That way we're maximizing the quality of the hay coming out of the field. Now, if we're talking about float pressure, you can see your readouts here, but ultimately we're watching that cutter bar as it's floating through the field. We want to keep that cutter bar nice and firm on the ground without bouncing, but we do want to set that cutter bar light so it's almost bouncing, but just not quite. So that's a quick overview. This applies to a lot of different models of windrowers, not just what's sitting behind me here. If you've got more questions, consult your operator's manual or look at the Equipment mobile app through John Deere, or contact your local Acres Equipment dealership.